The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as High Arbiter stood from his floating throne. His four eyes blinked slowly as he surveyed the 217 species representatives gathered before him. The blue light from the central hologram bathed his skin in an eerie glow. "The motion is passed," announced, his voice echoing through the massive hall. "Humans are hereby banned from all council space. Their ships will be turned away at every border. Their merchants will find no welcome. Their diplomats will receive no audience." For a moment there was only silence. Then the laughter began. It started with the ambassador, a massive creature with scales like polished metal. His deep rumbling laugh filled the chamber like thunder. Within seconds, others joined him. They clicked their mandibles in amusement. The gaseous swirled with colors of mockery. Even the normally stoic allowed themselves small smiles. "Banning humans," ambassador of the Empire stood, his 3-meter frame towering over nearby delegates. "Have you actually seen these creatures? They live on a medium-sized rock on the edge of nowhere. They have barely mastered basic space travel. They are laughably short. Their bodies are soft and easily broken." More laughter rippled through the assembly. "They have no natural weapons," continued, spreading his clawed hands for emphasis. "No venom, no armor, no telepathy. They cannot even breathe underwater or survive in vacuum for more than a few moments. What possible threat could such weak creatures pose to the mighty civilizations of this council?" Remained standing, his expression unchanged. He had expected this reaction. 3 solar cycles ago, he too would have laughed at such a proposal. But that was before the 7 incident. That was before the footage. "Ambassador," said calmly, "I understand your amusement. I shared it once. But I respectfully ask that you and all assembled delegates take your seats. There is something you must see." The laughter began to fade as representatives noticed something unusual. The species who had proposed the ban, none of them were laughing. In fact, they sat in complete silence, their eyes fixed on the central display. The ambassador, a being of crystalline form, appeared to be trembling. "What could possibly justify such extreme measures against primitives?" asked Lady of the, her silver robes flowing as she gestured dismissively. 18 standard cycles ago, began, a slave fleet raided a human colony on the edge of their territory. The colony was called New Helsinki. Population, 43,000. The fleet consisted of 12 warships and 4 transport vessels. Their mission was to capture humans for labor in the mineral mines of Prime. Scales shifted uncomfortably. Slavery was technically illegal under council law, but everyone knew the still practiced it in the outer territories. No one had ever challenged them. They were too powerful, too feared. "The raid was considered a success," continued. "The colony's defenses were minimal. The human military response was slow. By the time their ships arrived, the fleet had already departed with approximately 8,000 captives, mostly workers, some children, a few soldiers who had been overwhelmed." "And this concerns us how?" asked, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Among those captured were 47 members of a human military unit. They were taken alive only because they found their primitive weapons amusing." Paused. The fleet commander decided to keep these soldiers as entertainment. He planned to have them fight in his personal arena for the amusement of his officers during the long journey home. The chamber had grown very quiet now. What follows is security footage from the flagship of that fleet, compiled from surviving data cores. I must warn all delegates. What you are about to witness may disturb you greatly. The central hologram flickered and changed. The grand chamber was suddenly filled with the image of a ship's cargo hold. The footage was slightly corrupted, jumping occasionally, but clear enough. Rows of humans sat in energy cages, huddled together for warmth. Most were civilians, their faces showing terror and despair. But in one corner, a group of humans stood differently. They wore torn uniforms. Their faces were bruised and bloodied, but their eyes were not afraid. They were watching, waiting. The footage jumped ahead. An officer entered the cargo hold with 4 guards. He pointed at a human female in military dress. The guards deactivated her cage and dragged her forward. She did not struggle. She seemed to go limp, completely passive. The officer laughed and said something in his native tongue. The translator rendered it as, "These creatures have no fight in them. This will be a short entertainment." The female was thrown onto the floor. The officer turned to leave. Then everything changed. The human moved with speed that made several delegates gasp. She had been holding something small in her hand, something she had hidden through the initial capture, through the transport, through days of captivity. A piece of metal no larger than a finger. In one smooth motion, she drove it through the eye of the nearest guard. The chamber erupted in chaos as the remaining soldiers burst from their cages. The footage showed that they had somehow disabled their restraints during captivity. They had been waiting for exactly this moment. For days, they had planned in silence, using hand signals and coded words. What followed was difficult to watch. The humans had no weapons beyond what they could make or steal. They were larger, stronger, and armed with plasma rifles. But the humans did not care. They fought with a ferocity that logic. One human, a male with hair, took 3 plasma burns to his chest and still kept fighting. He tackled a twice his size and used his failing body weight to hold the creature down while another human crushed its skull with a metal bar. A young soldier, barely more than a child by human standards, had fashioned a garrote from wire and used it with terrible efficiency. Delegates watched in horror as she dropped from a ceiling pipe onto his back and strangled him while he thrashed and fired his weapon wildly. The footage jumped again. Now it showed corridors filled with emergency lighting. Alarms blared. The humans had escaped the cargo hold. They were moving through the ship with purpose. They had acquired weapons now, but they did not use them the way normal species would. They set traps. They created diversions. They used the ship's own systems against its crew. One scene showed a group of humans deliberately venting an entire section to space, killing 30 soldiers who had been pursuing them. The humans had found emergency suits. They had known exactly what they were doing. "They adapted," Lady whispered. "In a matter of hours, they learned the ship's systems well enough to use them as weapons." The footage continued. It showed humans tending to their wounded while simultaneously planning their next assault. It showed them refusing to leave fallen comrades behind. It showed them sharing their last food with captured civilians. And it showed them killing with efficient brutality whenever came near. 3 standard days into the footage, something remarkable happened. The humans had reached the engine room. They had lost 17 of their original 47 soldiers. Many of the survivors were badly wounded. By all logical assessment, they should have surrendered. Instead, they rigged the engines to overload. "They gave us a choice," a voice said on the recording. It was the fleet commander speaking into his personal log. His voice was shaking. "They said we could release all human prisoners and provide them with a transport ship, or they would destroy the flagship and everyone on it, including themselves." The commander had laughed at this threat. He had sent his best warriors to retake the engine room. The footage of that battle lasted only 4 minutes. When it ended, the commander had no more warriors to send. "We gave them the transport," the commander's log continued. His voice was hollow now, empty of all pride. "We gave them everything they asked for. One of their soldiers, a female with half her face burned away, smiled at me as she helped the civilians board the ship. She said something I will never forget. She said, 'We will remember this. We will come back.'" The hologram flickered and died. The great chamber sat in absolute silence. The transport carrying the freed humans arrived at human space 2 cycles later, said quietly. They had 8,000 civilians, 23 surviving soldiers, and the personal weapons of every who had tried to stop them. He turned to face the assembly. you have seen is not an isolated incident. We have compiled similar footage from 14 separate encounters across the galaxy. A human colony ship that was attacked by raiders. Survivors fought for 6 months using rocks and fire until rescue arrived. A human exploration vessel that was captured by slavers. The crew somehow learned to disrupt gaseous forms using modified radio waves. They killed their captors and flew the alien ship home despite never having seen its technology before. His four eyes moved slowly across the chamber. Humans do not surrender. They do not accept defeat. When threatened, they do not calculate odds or measure costs. They fight until they win or until they are completely destroyed. And if you destroy them, their families will come. Their friends will come. Their entire species will come. And they will bring weapons you have never seen because they will invent those weapons specifically to destroy you. Ambassador had not spoken since the footage began. His scales had turned pale, almost white. Finally, he found his voice. "One species," he said slowly. 47 soldiers defeated a flagship with their bare hands. Not defeated, corrected. Conquered. They took the ship. They freed their people, and they went home to tell others exactly how they did it. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Lady stood, her silver robes no longer flowing with confidence. "I withdraw my objection to the ban," she said, "and I motion that we increase the buffer zone around human space by an additional 50 light-years." The vote was unanimous. Somewhere in the void of space, a human colony ship drifted through the darkness. Its captain, a weathered woman with scars on her hands and stars in her eyes, received the council's transmission. She read the declaration of the ban. She read the expansion of the exclusion zone. And she smiled. "They're learning," she said to her first officer, "but not fast enough." She plotted a course for the next unexplored system and engaged the engines. The humans had been banned from council space. That was fine. There was a whole universe out there, and humanity had never been particularly good at following rules anyway. The captain looked out at the infinite darkness ahead and felt nothing but anticipation. The galaxy thought it had protected itself by pushing humans away. It had no idea that it had simply given them more room to grow, more time to prepare, and more reasons to remember who had tried to keep them down. When humanity came back, and they would always come back, things would be very different. The council could keep their precious borders and their ancient territories. Humanity would take the rest. And somewhere in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, a single thought echoed in the minds of 217 species. Perhaps banning the humans was not enough. Perhaps nothing would ever be enough.